Understand what you're saying, that some people left behind, but he's making these statements that the mayor is flat out disputing.
Well, Martha, you just said the mayor said they were exaggerated.
Grossly exaggerated.
There's got to be some. That means there's got to be some element of truth here. And of course, President Trump was actually in Aurora, Colorado, talking to people on the ground. And what we're hearing, of course, Martha, is that people are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened.
Martha.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border. Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
Okay, let's just
look at her body language. Look at her eyes, y'all.
Just end that.
You know you're defeated live on there. Look, just look. Wow. Man, I'm telling you, they're going to start bringing them on the show. This is it. Just go on, walk off set, man. Just go on in and cut the feed. People are sick and tired, man. Sick and tired. And we know what's going on. Fake news. Fake news. We know what's going on. We are sick and tired of the lies. We're sick and tired, man.
They did not invade or take over the city, as Donald Trump said. I want to move on to
just a few apartment complexes. No big deal.
A few apartment complexes that the mayor did not seem was invading the entire city. Let's move on to women and abortion.
Just on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Now this right here, this is the difference, baby. This is the frickin' difference. Politics is all about contrast. You're contrasting two different political parties, two different candidates, and making a decision. Who's going to be better for me? Or who's more fit for the job? Who's answering the tough questions? Making the case? Well, it's been what? Nearly 3 months? And I think we've had enough time to see the difference. You know, the leftist media tried to tell Kamala Harris she needs to do more public events and not just little softball, t-ball interviews.
I don't think that doing softball interviews is going to put this to rest. I understand the point that you're making, but I think the decision that I'm looking for from the Harris team is who are they choosing to sit down with? And is that going to be something where you come away feeling like she took the hard questions, or if this, snowball continues?
No news conferences for Harris, no sit-down interviews. The questions, the coverage hasn't been tough enough. Tom?
Yeah. She's doing interviews with content creators today instead of,
So let's call it the Harris honeymoon, right? When does the Harris honeymoon end? Because at some point she's going to have to sit down. She's going to have to do a serious interview. She's going to have to go unscripted, maybe even a full news conference, but it has to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, these softball interviews were never gonna cut it, especially if you're such a walking, talking disaster and you show up to these t-ball, softball interviews. You know, kind of the whole point of softball and t-ball is it's supposed to make it a little bit easier for you to hit it, but despite the fact you keep striking out. You know, Kamala Harris can't get the job done. She can't get the big optics win, even when people are handing it to her, lobbing the ball so softly, so gently, setting it up for her, saying, Kamala, we've given you the questions, we've even helped you in your answers, and we're even editing your answers, and it's still not working. Complete utter disaster. Meanwhile, the Trump camp, Donald Trump and JD Vance, keep going directly into the lion's den, and they are absolutely killing it. We're reaching the home stretch here, folks. Harris. It's time to get the job done. The clock is ticking down. Who's going to make that clutch play? Well, it seems as though it's coming from the Trump team. JD Vance blesses the internet with yet another home run. And like I'm saying, friends, the contrast, it just couldn't be clearer. Who's competent and who, frankly, is incompetent? Well, let's take a look. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, so usually some of these clips need a little bit of preparation, a little bit of context before I play them. This one does not need anything. Take a look.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
You know, it's just win after win after win. That clip, just released this morning, has already garnered millions upon millions of views across social media platforms. You know, going back to Telepromptergate, which we spoke about yesterday, I was talking about how this one frame, this one shot of a teleprompter in front of Kamala Harris essentially overshadowed her entire media blitz. She can't even get over 1 million views on any of her interviews. Meanwhile, look at this. JD Vance just shows up casually on ABC News and he breaks the freaking internet. It's just not the same thing, and the Trump campaign is totally outshining the Kamala Harris campaign. And it's honestly thanks to two things. Firstly, JD Vance is a great speaker. He's a great debater. Donald Trump, maybe not as good of a speaker, but he's got his own quirks and his own ability to get things done. He just does it in a very, rash kind of way. But anyways, the point is they're both good at what they do in their own ways. And the second element is, these talking heads in the media are just the worst. Holy frickin' moly. They just continuously prove us right over and over again, making utter fools of themselves and sending thousands of more people every time to the Trump camp every time they do it. And this interview with JD Vance, I think, perfectly encapsulates the shameless partisan bias that has overtaken mainstream media outlets. This interview is far more interested in nitpicking little nonsense details and feigning faux outrage about Donald Trump's statements and mean tweets than she is at addressing serious issues plaguing the nation. These people, these networks, serve only one purpose. They're essentially mouthpieces for the Democratic establishment. What you just saw there is not journalism. It's damage control for Kamala Harris. She claimed that it was only a couple of apartment complexes, as if that just simply trivializes the crisis. Is that really the standard now? How many apartment complexes need to be taken over before it's concern-worthy and gets some media attention? One apartment complex overrun by criminal gangs should be enough to sound the alarms across the country. Instead of addressing the unchecked flood of illegal immigration under Kamala's watch that's clearly led to a skyrocketing in crime, this interviewer rather chooses to downplay the severity of the problem, defending the administration so pathetically by clinging to weak technicalities, and of course, minimizing the suffering of real people. That's what these people do. I don't know about you guys, but my view is that Americans deserve better than this kind of gaslighting from the legacy media. ABC News should be holding power to account, regardless of the political party, not running interference for the Biden administration's failures. The corruption's on full display. We can all see it. But honestly, at this point, I know I'm ranting a little bit. I'm a little bit frustrated. I'm signaling my frustration. But honestly, at this point, I don't even want them to stop. Keep going on, MSNBC, with Donald Trump is literally Hitler.
Is that we have long known that Donald Trump has revered the Nazis. He has revered Hitler. He's read his book. He used to say he had it on his nightstand. Donald Trump has had a very sinister philosophy, wanting to be a dictator, absolutely dividing people up based on who they are, based on factors about them that have to do with their race and their gender, etc. And when he uses language like this, I don't think that it's a Freudian slip. I think that the danger of a Donald Trump is that he would absolutely try to exterminate an entire group of people because he thinks that their genes are somehow different than his and faulty. And I say this with all the sternness that you hear in my voice.
Keep going on with the hyperbolic nonsense. I mean, really calling Donald Trump Hitler in 2024? Keep going on, diminishing the crime crisis.
Does she still have her job? 'Cause, man, these people are ridiculous, man. You know, fake news, the enemy of the people. It's just all the propaganda, the brainwashing, lie after lie after lie. I mean, all the hatred, just crap, man.
Keep doing it, because frankly, all you're doing really is giving people like JD Vance and other conservatives slam dunk alley-oop opportunities. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, if you're a competent person, which a lot of these conservative politicians are, this stuff is better than a softball interview. You know, the Democrats ought to take notes. This is how you frickin' win elections. Most importantly, this is how you get loyal grassroots support. The people are fed up. They're done with the BS. And it's becoming clear, it's becoming obvious. Every single day, it's becoming clearer and clearer who's real and who's not. Who's got the nation's best interest at heart and who's playing politics? You know, really the question is, who's the real deal? I think it's pretty obvious it's Trump and JD Vance. And really the headlines are starting to reflect reality. Kamala Harris is getting help to clean up her style in interviews after failure to explain how she differs from Biden. She's trying to be the president of the United States and she needs to get coached on how to be successful in interviews. You know,
the hoe is worse than Joe. Y'all repeat after me. Joe Biden 2.0, the hoe is worse than Joe.
Now that's just unacceptable. We're talking about who's going to be the leader of the free world, the most powerful office probably in human existence, and Kamala Harris needs help. Oh, please, somebody help me. Are you freaking kidding me? What an absolute joke, and I think people are really starting to realize.
LaQuint Dickey voted for Obama twice. Since then, he's switched to Trump over Harris.
She hasn't answered anything about any of her policies, any of them. So there's no clear line of what her policies are.
Kamala Harris hasn't answered anything about her policies, any of them. That's the direct quote from a 2-time Obama voter turning Trump supporter. And I think that really reflects the general sentiment here. People are just not getting answers to their questions. They're not feeling like Kamala Harris is authentic, and on top of that, they're not feeling like she's competent. And obviously, not everybody, but at least most people with working brains realize that that's probably not a good thing for the person who's trying to get elected to become the next president of the United States of America. And it's kind of funny, huh? I remember the panic, and I certainly remember the fake news narrative that Donald Trump essentially lost the election the moment he picked JD Vance as his running mate. JD Vance is horrible, the worst pick ever. Boy, are these leftoids in the media now eating their words, huh? JD Vance turned out to be a masterful pick. The guy's an absolute frickin' ace.
Everybody
Meanwhile,
loves him.
Kamala Harris on the other side is here hoping that she could be unburdened by the interview failures of her recent past. Oh, it's just too good. Anyways, that's pretty much.
It's crazy, man. Everybody, even Democrats, lifelong Democrats, live on air saying, man, our party is actually, you know, we don't like Trump, but we're starting to love this JD Vance fella. He was actually a good pick. And I'm pretty sure we're all, again, he wasn't in our top 3, our top 5, our top 10. Y'all knew my top 3 and top 6 VP picks. And we did so many videos on it on this channel. But, you know, to see it play out, and now every single day we are falling more in love with that JD Vance fella, man. You know, he's stepping. He's not bending the knee. He's not yielding, you know. And he, just like Trump, walks in the lion's den, tells it like it is, isn't afraid to call it for what it is, man. No matter the propaganda, the lies, the fake news, no matter how he gets treated, how they talk to him, how they delivered to him sets the record straight every single time. And this is why I tell you guys, it's going to be too big to rig, man. I believe it's going to be too big to rig. And we encourage all of you to go out and vote. Let me know what y'all think of this. Comment down below. I love you guys. I bless you all and your families. And one love to the human race, baby. And we are going to keep rocking and rolling with only 20 some days out, man. We are on crunch time. We're crunching right now. And it's looking very, very good for Trump. But we can't get complacent, man. I love y'all. And I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Peace and love, y'all.